She clicked her umbrella every night at 2:07 to then I disappeared too. Surreal drama mystery. They say the building was built in 1926, the kind with wrought iron balconies and arcing doorways that frame shadows more often than they do sunlight. I moved into apartment 2B in early spring, not for the view or the amenities, but because it was cheap, had a bathtub that didn't slant, and wasn't crawling with college kids playing EDM at midnight. The listing said, "Quiet neighborhood," and for once that wasn't a lie. In fact, it was too quiet. The kind of quiet that felt rehearsed, like the whole block was holding its breath. The landlord, a guy named Greg who answered his phone only between 2 and 4 p.m., had a smile too big for his eyes and talked fast, like every question I asked might unravel something. But I didn't push. I just signed the lease, got the keys, and started carrying boxes up the narrow stairwell that reeked of lemon cleaner and mothballs. That was the first time I saw her. She was standing in the hallway just outside 3A, holding a black umbrella indoors, though it hadn't rained in weeks. Her hair was too perfect, not a strand out of place, and she wore gloves. Then white, like something out of an old photograph. I nodded. She didn't. She just turned, walked back inside, and shut the door soundlessly. I didn't think much of it. City people are weird. Weirder still when they live in old buildings and have too much rent, controlled time to collect habits. But even then, something about her didn't sit right. The umbrella, the gloves, the door that made no noise, like the world respected her desire not to be noticed. Over the next few weeks, I settled in. The apartment was fine. The water pressure was a little aggressive, and the radiator hissed like it was muttering secrets, but I could deal with that. What I couldn't deal with was the sound that came from above me every night around 2:17 m. Precisely like someone pressed play. At first, it was faint, like a single heel clicking once against a hardwood floor, then silence. Then again, exactly 5 seconds later, heel, pause, heel, pause. After the 6th click, it would stop, not fade, not slow, just stop. The first few nights, I chalked it up to the pipes or maybe the neighbor pacing before bed. But when I brought up to Greg during one of his rare callback windows, he cleared his throat and said, "Ho, that's probably the building settling. Happens sometimes when the temperature drops at night." But I checked. The weather didn't drop enough to make anything creak, and wood doesn't settle like a metronome in heels. After the second week, I started timing it. 6 clicks, 5 seconds apart, each night at exactly 2:17. No more, no less. I began sleeping with my phone under my pillow, alarm set to 2:16 so I could catch the sound fresh, and every time, like clockwork, it came. Heel, pause, click 6, then nothing. It wasn't just the sound. It was how everything else in the room seemed to pause while it happened. Even the streetlight flicker outside my window would stabilize, like the entire world froze for those 6 clicks. I started wondering if anyone else heard it, but the other tenants weren't exactly chatty. The man in Teen C cuffed constantly and avoided eye contact. The couple in 20C seemed like they were on the verge of a breakup every time I saw them. And the woman in 3C, well, she had a cat that stared at walls and wouldn't come when called. I don't even think she ever spoke to me directly. Just nods, glances, silence. All the time, that silence. Except for the girl upstairs. I still didn't know her name. Mailboxes didn't have labels. And no one ever came or left from 3A. I'd sit in the lobby sometimes pretending to tie my shoes, waiting to see if she'd exit for groceries or work or even a walk. Nothing, except that one night, late May. I'd gone down to throw out some trash around 11 p.m. half asleep, hair a mess, no shoes. I opened the basement chute and nearly dropped the bag when I heard a voice behind me say, "Don't." It was Hurt. Same umbrella. Same gloves. Same expression. Her voice was flat, nearly mechanical, like she wasn't speaking but remembering the act of speaking. "Don't put it in there," she repeated. I mumbled some awkward apology, heart thudding like a drum solo. "Why not?" I asked, but she was already gone, walking back up the stairs, umbrella tapping against the railing. I didn't see her again for days. But the memory of her voice stuck like something under the skin. That night, I left the trash beside the chute and went back to my apartment. But sleep didn't come. At 2:17, the heels clicked. 6 times, then silence. Except this time, after the 6th click, there was a soft scraping noise, like a chair being pulled across the floor, slow and deliberate. I froze. The air turned thick. I wanted to get up, to run out of the apartment, but my legs didn't move. The sound stopped after a few seconds, replaced by a soft thud. Then nothing. Not even the buzz from the streetlight. I counted 60 seconds, then 90. Then I got up, went to my front door, and opened it. The hallway was empty. But at the foot of the stairs was a single black glove, White lining turned out like it had been removed quickly. I didn't touch it, just stared. Then shut the door. That glove was gone by morning, as if it had never existed. A few days later, I found myself Googling things like clicking sounds upstairs same time every night, hold building footsteps, and neighbors who never leave apartment. Most results were either supernatural conspiracy theories or stories from people with overactive imaginations, but one thread stood out, a forum post from 2015, archived and mostly dead. The subject line read Apartment 38, do not ask questions. The post was vague, full of redacted names and timelines, but the details hit too close. It mentioned the 6 clicks, the exact time, the umbrella, even the lemon scent in the hallway, which I hadn't noticed until I read that sentence. I got up, opened my door, and inhaled. Lemon, lemon. Not the bright artificial kind used in cleaning supplies. This was deeper, almost fermented. I closed the browser. Something wasn't right. Not just with her. With the building. With the way time bent at night. With the way my reflection had started lagging behind me in the bathroom mirror after 2 a.m. With the way that clicking sound now echoed, faintly even in the silence of midday. I started keeping notes. A little journal. Dates, times, changes in the pattern. Sometimes the heel clicks came a minute late. Once it was early. But always happened, and the days it didn't. Those were worse, because those days I'd wake up to find something out of place in my apartment. A chair pulled back from the table. My toothbrush slightly damp. My phone set to airplane mode. Once, my alarm had been turned off entirely and I missed a meeting. I changed the locks. Didn't matter. I put tape on the door. Still sealed every morning. But something was shifting, inch by inch, and I didn't know how to stop it. One night, I decided I'd go up there, to 3A. Just knock. Just see what happened. But when I reached the top of the stairs, the hallway felt colder. Not physically, just wrong. Like I'd stepped onto a stage where everyone had forgotten their lines. I raised my hand, about to knock, but the door creaked open. Just a sliver, enough to show darkness inside. And silence. Not even the kind with hidden noise. Just absence. I waited. Nothing moved. Then I noticed the umbrella. It was propped against the wall, tipped damp like it had just been used. I took a step back, heart racing. Then the door began to close on its own. Slowly, quietly, until it clicked shut, locking itself from the inside. I turned and walked back down, not daring to run, because running would make me pray. And somehow, I knew she was watching, not from a window, not from behind the door, but from somewhere else. Somewhere deeper in the building, behind the pipes, inside the walls, where the clicking came from and where silence went to sleep. That was the last night I slept soundly. Because the next night the clicking didn't come from above. It came from inside my apartment. 6 times. 5 seconds apart. I didn't scream. I don't know why. Maybe because something in me knew that screaming wouldn't help. That whatever was happening had already pushed past the realm of the explainable. I just sat there, paralyzed in my bed, as the final click echoed inside my walls. It didn't feel like footsteps anymore. It felt like an announcement, like someone, or something, letting me know it had arrived. The air was heavy, like being underwater. My breath came shallow, heartbeat loud in my ears. I reached for my phone. The screen lit up and the clock read 2:18. A minute late, just like in my notes. That should have meant nothing, but it did. It meant change. It meant escalation. The next morning, I checked every inch of my apartment. Nothing out of place. Windows still locked. Door sealed. But the feeling remained like fingerprints on my thoughts. I couldn't focus. Couldn't think straight. Even the hum of the refrigerator felt accusatory. I tried telling a friend over coffee about the sounds, about the woman, about the glove. He nodded, politely offered a half-hearted, "Maybe you need rest," then changed the subject to sports. That's when I realized I was alone in this. Whatever was happening, it wasn't going to make sense to people who didn't live under 3A. I started watching the door more. Not just at night. I worked remotely, so I adjusted my desk to face the hallway through the peephole, angled just right so I could spot any movement. Nothing. Days passed, and I started doubting myself. Maybe it really had just been in my head. Maybe the umbrella was a coincidence, the glove something I imagined, the 6 clicks an old pipe system rattling predictably. Then, one night, it wasn't clicks I heard. It was a knock at my door. Just one. Soft, barely audible. I froze mid-step. The lights were off, the apartment dark except for the glow of my laptop screen. The knock didn't come again. I crept to the door, pressed my eye to the peephole. The hallway was empty. Or so I thought. As I was about to pull away, the light bulb in the hallway flickered, and for a split second, I saw her, standing just beyond the fishy distortion. staring straight at the people, but her eyes didn't look like eyes. They looked like holes carved too deep, like pits without bottom, where sound went to die. I fell backward, knocking over a chair. When I scrambled up and looked again, she was gone. Just the hallway. Still. Dead. Normal. The next day, I installed a camera. Nothing high-end. Just one of those motion sensor types people use for deliveries. I angled it at my door, checked the app, tested the notifications. That night, I waited. 2:17 passed with no clicks. No footsteps. No knock. At 2:25, my phone buzzed. Motion detected. I opened the feed with shaking hands. Static. Just static. But then through the grainy interference, a single frame appeared. One frame. Just enough to catch a figure. White gloves. Black umbrella. And behind her, not the hallway, but my apartment. Like the camera had filmed through the door. I didn't sleep after that. How could I? I unplugged the camera, deleted the footage, and sat awake till the sun pushed away the nightmare. When I finally stepped outside, I almost ran into Greg, the landlord. He was carrying a box of cleaning supplies, eyes bloodshot like he hadn't slept either. I asked him, straight out, about the woman in 3A. At first, he acted confused, said there was no 3A, that the third floor only had storage units. I laughed, bitterly, said I'd seen her, seen the door, heard the footsteps. His expression changed. He didn't blink, didn't move. Then he said, very quietly, that door isn't supposed to be there. I asked what he meant, he just walked away. Left the box behind, I didn't touch it. That afternoon, I went up to the third floor again. There it was. 3A, same as ever. I reached out and touched the doorknob. It was warm, too warm, like someone had just held it for a long time. I knocked, once then twice. No answer. I pressed my ear to the wood. Silence. No, the kind of silence that had mass, that held breath. I backed away. I didn't need more confirmation. I knew. This wasn't just a haunting. This wasn't just some lingering spirit clinging to a place. This was architectural, foundational. The building itself was wrong. I started researching. Not just the address, but the lot, the land. I found old city plans from the 1940s. The building wasn't supposed to be here. The records listed a park. Then, in 1951, a correction was filed. No explanation, just a redacted signature and the word correctified. That same year, 4 people were reported missing in the area. 2 were never found. The other 2 were discovered in different boroughs, miles apart, muttering nonsense and clutching lemon peels in their hands. Lemon, like the scent in the hallway. I went deeper. Forums, obscure blogs, archives of police reports, whispers of a structure that shouldn't exist. They called it the corridor. A building that moves, reshapes itself, feeds off memory and attention. A place that grows with obsession. And the worst part, it doesn't trap you. It waits until you trap yourself. Until you care too much. Until you're too deep in the pattern. That's when it changes. That's when it welcomes you in. That's when the clicks stop meaning she's moving. They mean she's watching. I stopped going outside. I covered mirrors. Turned off all electronics after midnight. But still the sounds came. Not just clicks anymore. Now whispers. Faint at first, then louder. Familiar voices I knew. My voice sometimes saying things I hadn't said yet, things I feared I would. I started recording them, playing them back. But the audio was always silent. The voices were only for me. One night, I snapped. I ran upstairs with a hammer. I was going to break down the door to 3A, end it, burn whatever was inside. But when I got there, the door wasn't just closed. It was gone. The whole wall was flat. No hinges. No knob. Just painted plaster. Smooth. Untouched. Like 3A had never been there. But I remembered it. I remembered every second. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't. I ran back down, heart pounding. Slammed my door, locked it 5 times, and collapsed on the floor. Then I looked up and saw the number on my door, 3A, not 2B3A. I stood slowly, legs numb. I hadn't moved. I was in my apartment, but the number had changed. The hallway outside, too. The stairs led up now, not down. And when I checked my mail slot the next morning, it had a nameplate. M. Evers. Not mine. I don't know who that is. But now, the clicks come from below at 2:17. Always 6, always 5 seconds apart, and when they stop, I can hear breathing, close, as if someone's waiting just outside my door, umbrella in hand, listening to me think. I don't leave anymore. The building won't let me. People knock sometimes, offering help. But they don't sound real. Their voices have no weight, like recordings played through old speakers. The lemon scent is stronger now, almost choking, and the gloves, I have a pair. White. In my drawer, I don't remember buying them. But they fit perfectly. It's been days, or maybe longer. Time bends strangely here, like the hallways. Stretching when I try to leave, collapsing when I rest. I've stopped checking clocks. They all blink 2:17 now, frozen like the moment just before a scream. The number on my door remains 3A, no matter how many times I scratch it away. I tried covering it with duct tape, painting over it, even replacing the plaque. But every morning, it's back. Brass, polished 3A. That same cursed serif font. I found a mirror shoved behind the wardrobe one night. An old, warped thing I didn't remember moving in with. When I dragged it out, my reflection looked tired, which made sense, but then it smiled. I didn't. I swear I didn't. I smashed the mirror. The next morning, it was whole again, back behind the wardrobe like it had never left. That was the first time I realized the apartment was regenerating. Not just the walls or numbers, but the layout. Subtle things. The radiator moved an inch to the right. The bathroom sink faucet grew longer. The grout lines on the tile floor rearranged into crooked arrows pointing toward the front door. That night, I walked the hall again, hoping, stupidly, that the stairs might lead somewhere familiar. They didn't. The stairwell twisted upward in an impossible curve, ascending through doors that no longer had numbers, just blank panels and air that smelled like old photographs, faded chemicals, dry ink, skin cells. I tried one. It led to a room filled with static, not from a TV, but from everywhere, like the air was vibrating in code. In the center stood a woman, not the one from before. This one had no face, just a head wrapped in gauze, soaked yellow at the base, like lemons left to rot. She held her arms out like she was waiting for a hug or trying to block my way. I backed out slowly. Didn't run. I've learned not to run. Movement excites the building. It likes action. Reactivity. Fear. It feeds on it. On me. Back in my unit. 3A. Always thorax. I found the journal again. The one I thought I'd burned. The pages had returned, but now filled with new writing. Not mine. But it was my handwriting. Pages and pages of phrases I hadn't written. You saw her too late. The hallway is not a hallway. Umbrellas don't block rain here. They collect it. And over again, the same line, you are the upstairs neighbor now. I closed the journal and put it in the freezer. I don't know why. It felt safe somehow, like cold might slow it down. But in my dreams, it still writes. I wake up with ink on my hands, on my sheets. One morning, I found a page stuck to my cheek. My name was spelled backward across it. Nonsense? Maybe. But when I read it out loud, the walls responded. They pulsed. That same lemon scent exploded in the air, thick and syrupy. I coughed for hours. Eventually, I fell asleep on the bathroom floor. I dreamt of a hallway that didn't end, not just long, endless, lit by flickering bulbs that grew brighter the deeper I walked. At the end, there was a door. No handle, no keyhole. Just a black line down the center, like the seam in a stage curtain. I pressed against it and heard whispering. Not words, not language. Just emotion, desperation, loneliness. Then I woke up and the hallway was inside my apartment. My living room had folded in on itself. The walls reshaped. The couch now sat in a corridor that shouldn't exist, stretching into an impossible depth. I stepped into it, just once. Just for a second, my foot touched carpet that hadn't been there before. Thick, blood-red, spongy under my weight. And then I heard the umbrella tapping again. Click. Pause. Click. Pause. 6 times. I turned back, but the door had vanished. I ran forward. 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 The hallway twisted, tilted, and I swear gravity flipped. I fell sideways, not down. Landed on what looked like the ceiling, but the ceiling had floorboards. No dust. No scuffs. Just lines carved into the wood. Scratches shaped like people. Poses. Outlines of humans curled in fetal positions, some with hands raised as if pushing against something. I crawled past them. My hand landed in one and fit perfectly. Too perfectly. I pulled away and the groove began to bleed. I didn't wait to see more. I ran until the hallway ended at a mirror. A clean, perfect mirror. But my reflection was the woman now. The one from the basement chute. Gloves, umbrella, hollow eyes. I raised my hand. She didn't. I turned around. Nothing. Just wall. I screamed, but no sound came. Then I was back, in my apartment, 3A. Again. But this time everything was clean. Too clean. Sterile. Like it had just been staged for a showing. Even the air was neutral. No lemon, no dust, no static. On the table sat a letter. Typewritten, no stamp. Just one line, welcome home, Miss Evers. I didn't recognize the name. But my phone did. When I opened my contacts list, all the names were gone. Just one remained, Evers. No number. Just a message. Can you hear me now? I didn't respond. Couldn't. My hands wouldn't move, but the cursor on the phone screen typed by itself, yes. The power flickered. My walls rippled, briefly revealing old wallpaper underneath. Stripes and roses like from a 1950s motel. Then everything snapped back. Since that night, things have changed. I get calls now. Static on the other end. Always at 2:17. I answer them anyway. I don't know why. Maybe I hope to understand. Maybe I want to hear my own voice again. But it's not my voice. It's the sound of wet paper being torn. of teeth grinding on metal. I've started writing my name on every mirror I find, hoping maybe it'll anchor me. But the names always change by morning. The latest one said, Margaret. I've never been Margaret. Have I? My memories are soft now. Blurred. I remember a mother who braided my hair. Or was that someone else's hair? I remember a brother, a dog, a bicycle. But when I try to picture them, I see hallway tiles, mirror frames, gloved hands. The building has rewritten me. I'm not a person anymore. I'm a function, a role, a shadow that watches the next tenant from behind walls. I've stopped fighting it. Resistance only deepens the spiral. The trick is to float, to let go of chronology, of names, of doors. I think that's what she wanted from the beginning. Not to scare me, but to prepare me, to pass the burden. This place, it doesn't haunt. It inhabits. It wears people like clothes. And when it's done with them, it folds them into its blueprint. The way I see her now, sometimes standing just outside the door, umbrella resting on her shoulder, no expression on her face. She's not trying to enter. She's checking to see if I've left, if I'm ready to become the next wall, the next pipe, the next voice behind a door that isn't supposed to be there. And maybe I am, because last night I saw a new tenant moving in across the hall, young, hopeful, boxes in hand, wide eyes, and I felt hungry. Not for food, for narrative, for continuation. The building needs a witness. It always does. Maybe that's what I've become, a host, a hinge, a guide. When he knocked on my door to introduce himself, I opened it slowly, gloves already on, smile rehearsed. He said. I just moved into 2B, I nodded. Nice to meet you, I said. Welcome to the building. Then I handed him a gift, a mirror, just a small one, framed in brass, engraved at the base 2x17. He took the mirror with polite confusion, thanked me, and disappeared behind the newly painted door of 2B. For a moment, I stood there, watching the brass number on his door glint under the hallway light like a knowing eye. The moment he shut the door, I exhaled, though I hadn't realized I was holding my breath. It wasn't nerves, it was ritual, a handoff. A torch passed without fire, only reflection. I walked back into 3A, my 3A, if you could still call it mine, and noticed the air had changed again. Lighter, like the walls sighed with me, like something had been satisfied, for the first time in what felt like weeks, months. The clicking stopped, no 217. No umbrella taps, just silence, but not the oppressive kind. This silence had space, like a cleared stage waiting for a new act. I thought maybe it was over, that I'd passed the test, graduated from haunted to haunting. I even managed to sleep. Not deeply and not for long, but enough to dream of color instead of corridors. A red bicycle, a field of blue sheets fluttering like ghosts on a clothesline, someone calling a name that almost sounded like mine. When I woke, there were no fresh scratches on the floor. No pages in the journal, no lemon in the air. The mirror was still intact, my face unchanged. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, I opened a window. I let in a breeze. I even thought about leaving, packing a bag, touching grass, remembering what warmth tasted like. But when I tried the front door, it opened to a hallway I didn't recognize, longer than before. More doors than should have existed, all numbered 3A. No stairs, no exit, just an endless series of identical doors stretching into darkness. I closed it quickly and locked it out of habit. My breath caught in my throat. The apartment had let me believe it was easing up, but it was just turning the page. Rewriting again. The next day I heard him, the new tenant, laughing on the phone, probably with someone from outside. He hadn't noticed yet. The building was still flattering him, playing innocent. That's how it works. It doesn't grab you. It courts you. It learns your rhythm, then interrupts it just enough to make you question your balance. Then it replaces your reflection, your time, your voice, your memories. You won't even notice it's happening until it already has your name. And then you're just story. That's what she was. The woman with the umbrella. A chapter, a warning shaped like a person. And now she's gone. Not missing, just absorbed. She was never trying to scare me. She was showing me the lines in the blueprint, the crawl spaces in the narrative. And now that I've stepped into her place, I understand the weight of stillness. The way to hold a gaze just long enough to suggest knowing without speaking. It's all about suggestion here. That's how the apartment survives. It doesn't tell, it shows. It hints. And when you fill in the blanks, it grows stronger. I started writing again. Not by choice, but compulsion. The journal fills itself now, but it needs my hands. My pressure. My blood. The pen only works when my fingers tremble. I've written pages I don't remember, sentences that vanish when I look away. But some remain. They instruct, not directly, but through implication, like, if the hallway breathes, do not exhale. Or, 1. The pipes whisper your childhood nickname. Don't answer. It's not for you anymore. Or my favorite. You've already left. You just don't know who stayed behind. Sometimes I see my reflection walking in the mirrors when I'm still sitting on the couch. It glances over its shoulder like it's late for something. Other times, the reflection isn't mine at all. It's him, the new tenant, but older, thinner, with eyes like drain holes. I tried to warn him once. Left a note outside his door. Don't follow the clicks. The next morning, it was back under mine. Same handwriting, but rewritten. We all follow them eventually. The building has moods now. It sulks when ignored, rearranges when it's pleased. One morning I woke up and every object in the apartment had shifted 3 inches to the left, just enough to trip on things, just enough to feel madness knocking at the door. Other mornings it rewards me. A cup of tea, still steaming, waiting on the table. My favorite song playing on the radio, though I never owned one. Once I found a childhood photo on the wall, me on a swing laughing, but behind me, blurred in the background, was the apartment. Same bricks. Same windows. Impossible. But there it was, framed and nailed like it belonged. I've begun rehearsing my role, the one I must play when the next handoff happens. There are gestures to learn, things to say, moments to be silent. The building likes cycles, echoes, patterns that almost, but not quite, repeat. I understand now that I'm not just a tenant. I'm a character, a fixture. I don't own anything here. Not the floor beneath me, not the memories in my head, not even my own name. The building leases identity like it leases space. Short-term renewable, but never fully yours. Sometimes I hear knocking from inside the walls. Not behind. Inside. It's always 6 times. Respectful. Like it's asking permission. I haven't answered. Yet. But I know I will. Because the knocking comes closer each time. Louder. Warmer. Like a breath behind my ear. I saw him again yesterday. The neighbor. He looked tired. Shadows under his eyes, posture slumped. He asked if I heard something weird last night. I lied. Said no. He nodded slowly like he didn't believe me. Then he asked about the mirror I gave him. Said it fogged up at night even when it wasn't humid. Said he swore it showed someone behind him once, but when he turned, no one was there. I smiled. Old glass warps light, I said. You get used to it. He nodded, unsure. Then he said something that made my chest seize. It clicks sometimes, 6 times, always at 2:17. I laughed lightly. Coincidence, I offered. He laughed too, but it didn't reach his eyes. And when he turned to leave, I saw a glove in his back pocket. Delicate. Not his. I didn't say a word. He's not ready, but soon he will be. The building is patient. It plants seeds, grows. It doesn't demand, it invites. All you have to do is notice. All you have to do is ask one wrong question or listen too closely. And then it has you, wrapped in lemon and static and echoes. I used to think I could escape. That maybe, if I reached the basement or the roof or smashed through the drywall, I could find a crack in the reality it's built. But I've tried. The basement only goes down, further than any building should. The roof loops. You climb 10 floors and end up back in the lobby. Once I tried climbing out the window. The sky was blank, just white, like a ceiling. No wind, no noise, just silence that pressed against my skin like a second body. So I stay. I fulfill the role. I keep the building satisfied, because I know now, if I fail, if I resist, if I reject the part, I don't get removed, I get rewritten. That's what happened to the man in Twin C. He used to cough constantly. Now he doesn't. Because there's no more apartment C. The stairs don't even reach the ground floor anymore. He's in the pipes now, I think. Sometimes, when I run the tap, the water tastes like regret, and when I flush, I hear sobbing echo from the drain. This place is a cathedral of consequences, a theater of memory. It doesn't forget, only recycles. And soon it will ask me to perform again. I've felt it in the air. The hallway smells stronger now, brighter, citrus and copper. And the journal has begun to empty again, waiting for new script, for new scenes. The building is watching, the neighbor is noticing. The mirror is fogging, and somewhere deep beneath the floorboards, the umbrella taps once, then pauses, then taps again. Always 6 times, always 5 seconds apart, always beginning with the end. The fog came in thick the next night, curling in through the seams of the window despite it being shut tight, despite the fact that fog had no place inside a sealed apartment. It carried with it a scent that had become too familiar to ignore. Lemon, yes, but laced now with something metallic, something like rusted keys or old blood on cold copper. I woke coughing, lungs full of damp air, eyes burning. The lights flickered when I reached for the lamp, but they didn't come on. Only the mirror glowed faintly from across the room, casting a light that had no source and no warmth. I stood slowly, knowing something had shifted again. Some internal mechanism of the building had clicked over into a new position. The kind of change that doesn't knock. It waits for you to look. The hallway beyond my door no longer looked like any hallway I recognized. The paint had peeled itself into patterns. Spirals, eyes, mouths open mid-scream. The carpet was gone, replaced by linoleum that pulsed when I stepped on it, like something just beneath was alive and aware of pressure. I knew what this meant. I had passed another threshold, another phase. The building didn't want to consume me. It wanted me to become it. I was a piece now. A cog, and that meant I needed to start turning. That day, I heard the neighbor pacing. The new one. He hadn't introduced himself again, not since the mirror. But I heard him muttering to himself. A phrase repeated again and again, muffled but familiar. It's always 6, always 5 seconds. I should have warned him again, but warnings only accelerate the collapse. That's the trick. If you draw their attention to the patterns, they lean into them. Obsession is how the building seeds itself. Every note he scribbles, every glance at the clock, every whisper he chases down the pipe. It's fertilizing. I left a small gift at his door. A tape recorder. Old, clunky, the kind they used in courtrooms or therapy sessions. It wasn't mine. I'd never owned one, but it appeared on my nightstand that morning with the label already written. Play only once. I knew he'd press play. Curiosity is a form of consent. I went back inside and waited. It didn't take long. The tape hissed first, then crackled, then played back a recording I recognized immediately. It was his voice, but deeper, slower, drawn out, as though time itself had been stretched like taffy. He was recounting things he hadn't yet experienced. The woman in the wall told me her name, but it wasn't in words. It was in footsteps. Each one a syllable of warning I ignored. Then silence, then a child's laugh. And finally, the unmistakable sound of an umbrella opening indoors. That night, he didn't sleep. I heard pacing until dawn. I heard drawers opening, chairs scraping, the soft plunk of nails being driven into plaster. He was trying to anchor himself. I understood. I'd done the same, trying to create physical points of reality to hold you down as the building rewrites the script. But it doesn't matter. Once you hear your own voice tell a story you don't remember living, it's over. The loop has begun. When I passed his door the next morning, a sticky note had been left out front. When do you stop hearing the clicks? I didn't answer. But the truth is, you don't. They just change rhythm. They stop being a sound and start becoming a suggestion. Eventually, you'll wake in the middle of the night, and your heartbeat will match them. 6 thuds, 5 seconds apart. Your body starts obeying the building even when your mind protests. The next change came subtly. My photographs shifted. Where once were faces I didn't remember, now were rooms. Empty. Chair askew. Window cracked. A fan spinning in the corner like a hypnotist's wheel. Places I'd never seen, yet I knew their layout. I could describe the echo in each one. The way dust settled on the sill, the exact creak the floor made when you stepped 2 feet left from the radiator. Because they weren't photos. They were memories waiting for context. The building stores futures the way others store pasts. It has no timeline. It exists in spirals. And it had begun inserting me into its spiral archive. That evening I tried to leave again. Not for escape. I'd long since abandoned that illusion. But to test the edge. To see where the new border was. Sometimes the building expands. Sometimes it pulls back, curling in like a fist. You can feel its moods in the layout. I opened the door and stepped into a lobby I didn't recognize. The elevator was ancient cage style, with a brass plate reading, only down. I pressed the button. It arrived without noise. No gears, no rumble. Just a sudden presence. I stepped in. The inside was wallpapered in hundreds of tiny photographs. Passport style, monochrome, some stained. All eyes stared forward. No smiles. No hair. Just skin and pupils and the same vacant expression, recognition without memory. I pressed the only button. Labeled with a lemon symbol instead of a number. The doors closed like eyelids. When they opened, I was in a hallway flooded with light, but the light wasn't from bulbs. It came from the walls. They glowed faintly like backlit skin. And the scent, sharp, cloying, not just lemon anymore. Stronger. Mixed with something chemical, something ancient. I walked forward. The hallway curved in on itself, looping upward like a spiral shell. The doors here were labeled not with numbers, but emotions. Grief. Silence. Joy. I opened curiosity. Inside was a room with no ceiling. Just a shaft of sky filled with swirling clouds. In the center stood a table, and on it the journal. My journal. Except every page had already been filled. I flipped through them. Entries dated decades ago. Centuries. Some in languages I couldn't read, some in ink that shimmered like oil, but all signed with my name. Not just mem, but my name. I closed the book. The clouds darkened. I backed out and shut the door. As I did, it relabeled itself. No longer curiosity, now memory. I hurried back to the elevator, but it wasn't there. Only a staircase downward, coiled like a serpent's tail. I took it floor after floor, past doors that throbbed like organs. Eventually, I reached my apartment again. The door said M. Evers once more. I opened it. Nothing was where I left it. The couch was gone. The mirrors replaced with screens showing other rooms in the building. Live feeds. I saw the neighbor, curled in a ball, muttering into the corner of his closet. I saw the faceless woman sitting on the ceiling of the laundry room, swinging her legs. I saw the hallway that never ended and someone walking it. Me. Another me. The phone rang. First time in weeks. I picked up. A voice whispered, "Which floor are you on now?" Then silence. I looked around. The walls breathed in. The floor pulsed. And then I noticed my door had no knob on the inside. I wasn't in 3A anymore. I was in the building. I was in the building. It had internalized me, not metaphorically, literally. I felt my muscles stretch like wallpaper. My breath echoed through ductwork. My thoughts vibrated down the plumbing. I ran to the mirror. My reflection smiled. Behind me, the neighbor stood holding the tape recorder, and he said my name, the one I hadn't spoken aloud in months. "I think this used to be yours," he whispered. I turned, but he was gone. Only the recorder remained. I pressed play. It was my voice. But it was saying things I hadn't lived yet, describing a fire, a collapse, a warning, a choice. And then it said, "You'll only get one chance." That's when the hallway door swung open again. This time with two directions. Left light, right dark, and somewhere in between the sound, the unmistakable, slow, patient rhythm. Click, click, pause, click, 5 seconds apart. I wasn't walking toward it this time. I was walking with it. Because now I understood. The clicks weren't footsteps. They were a countdown. The corridor unfolded ahead like a throat preparing to swallow. I moved with the rhythm, not as a choice, but as a response. 6 clicks, 5 seconds apart, each one syncing with my heartbeat, my breath, my steps. I wasn't just walking towards something. I was being guided, pulled along a predetermined route like a train on tracks it never laid itself. The walls shimmered faintly as I passed, almost tender, like skin sensing warmth nearby. They knew me now. Or rather, I knew them. I wasn't a tenant anymore. I was a component, a layer, a function. At the end of the hallway, 2 doors waited. Identical, smooth. Feature knobs, just faint outlines like scars on a perfect face. Between them, a small table, and on it, the journal open to the final page, blank except for a single line at the top. Write it down. Or be forgotten. I reached for the pen beside it, but before I could touch it, I saw a detail I hadn't noticed. The pen was already bleeding ink onto the wood, dark and viscous like oil slick on rainwater. I leaned closer. The ink moved, shaped itself into letters. It's not a story until someone remembers it. My hand hovered, but I hesitated. Writing meant finality. Writing meant closing the loop. But what if that was the trap? What if recording it gave it permanence and power? Behind me, the clicks returned. But now, they didn't come from the floor. They came from inside my chest. A pulse, a mechanism. The building was no longer around me. It was through me. And yet, I wasn't afraid. Just aware. I had been absorbed, and in that absorption came understanding. Every door I'd ever opened, every step I'd ever taken, every doubt, fear, and silence had been design. I was following instructions written long before I moved in. This building wasn't haunted. It was a library, a monument, a machine built to record people who wandered too close to the edge of their own narratives and stared too long. Then something changed. The left door began to hum, faintly at first, then louder. Not a mechanical hum, but vocal, like dozens of voices speaking just below audibility. Not words, just familiar, intimate. It sounded like my mother calling me in for dinner, like a teacher reading my name aloud, like a lover whispering goodbye. It sounded like home. The right door stayed silent, still, but the air around it grew cold, like the absence of a question you'll never get to ask. I looked down. The journal page had changed again. 2 new lines had appeared. Left is memory, right is truth. I stood frozen. Memory is seductive. Memory lets you rewrite the ending, soften the edges, make heroes of villains and villains of regrets. Truth doesn't do that. Truth stays hard, still, unchanged. I reached out and placed my hand on the right door. It dissolved, not opened, not slid aside. It simply stopped existing, like it had never been there. Behind it, only darkness. And in that darkness, stairs, endless, downward, like a spiral cut into the concept of gravity itself. I stepped through and descended. With each step, the light above grew dimmer. With each breath, I could feel something shedding. Memory, ego, self, hard to say, but lighter. and then finally I emerged into the only place I had never seen in the building. The heart. It wasn't a room. Not really. More like a chamber of intersecting corridors, each leading nowhere and everywhere at once. Floor tiles formed sentences. Ceilings blinked like eyes. The walls were covered in frames. Pictures of people I didn't know but recognized instantly. A girl holding a lemon. A man with a tape recorder pressed to his ear. A boy writing his name over and over again. And then, me standing in a hallway, hand pressed to a mirror, watching myself age, watching the building take shape behind me. I stepped forward. The frame whispered, not audibly, but in that wordless way the building always communicated. It said you were always meant to stay. But then, a flicker, in the center of the chamber, a small device sat on a pedestal. Old, rusted, a reel-to-reel recorder humming faintly. On its display sound waves. My voice, but looping. The phrase, you only get one chance. Over and over, except this time the loop broke. A new voice overlaid it. It said, rewrite the ending. I blinked, and suddenly I was back in my apartment. 2B. The light was natural. The radiator hissed its usual hiss. The hallway smelled like dust, not lemon. Outside, city traffic passed like it always had. I stood dazed. My skin wasn't translucent. My heartbeat no longer echoed clicks. My reflection matched me in real time. I went to the door. The number said 2B. The stairwell led down. The lobby had mailboxes. People passed. One nodded. Another said hello. I nearly collapsed from the shock of normalcy. I rushed outside, sun hitting me like a resurrection. I could breathe, taste air, hear birds, smell gas and car exhaust. I wept, sat on the curb, stared at the building. It was just bricks, just windows, just a building. That night, I packed. I didn't want to risk a second chance. Some doors should only open once. I booked a flight, slept in a motel, called people I hadn't spoken to in years just to hear them say my name, just to tether myself. A month passed. Then two. Life resumed. Then, one morning, a letter arrived. No return address, just my name on the front. Inside, a photo of me, standing in the hallway of 3A, looking into the mirror. But the mirror didn't reflect me. It reflected the neighbor, holding the umbrella, wearing the gloves. Behind him, a hallway that never ended. And at the very bottom of the photo, scrawled in handwriting I'll never forget, thank you for showing me the way. The next day, I checked the city records again. The building had no recent tenants. No history of complaints. No one by my name had ever leased 2B. In fact, the address was wrong. Just a vacant lot now. Has been for decades. Burned down in 1981. No survivors. No records. Just ash. They say sometimes in that empty lot you can smell lemons. Sometimes at night, people walking by hear faint clicking behind their eyes. Always 6. Always 5 seconds apart. And if you stop, if you listen, you might just hear someone whisper your name. Because the building was never real. The building was you. Enjoyed the video? Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and tap the bell so you never miss an update.